It's the most exciting day of the week for all of us enthusiasts. My new favorite word of comic books. Man, I feel like every week is a great week nowadays. I always have something good to say, something bad to say, something mad to say. It's so fun. Probably like the thing I look forward to doing the most every week. Like for whoever ends up listening. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy me, Carl's commentaries on weekly comics and what I'm excited about to read this week. Or I mean, in like 2 weeks. I'm always behind, but it's okay. So, I didn't even see any comic news this week, like nothing. It's all about the books this week, and man, I have something to say about several of them. So let's dive right into it. Um, who remembers Future State? I mean, I did not forget about it, but it feel like it's been forever, right? So, the New Adventures of Superman, the Book of L, by Philip Kennedy Johnson. Um, the press release has this note about being like the, how did it say? It said something like the culmination of the the future state storyline. So for those who don't recall, future state was one of the like three sort of like editorial, how do they call it, like it's not reboots but they're like initiatives that DC has done. It was like future state, futures end, I think. Then there was another one before the current one, which is all in, right? And in future state they release a bunch of one shots of like future, like potential futures for many of these characters. I even I think I have like a foil cover edition of the Batgirl one. Was it Futures End? I think. Well, whatever. But the interesting thing about Superman was that he had like the whole L dynasty. Like in the future, it was something like important, like a big deal. And I sort of had forgotten about it because the current event of the Summer of Superman was kind of like it felt more like a reboot than anything. They brought Dan Slott, like big time writer, right? As I talked last week about the introduction of the new Kryptonites. It's been like really moved for Superman, but mostly in the present. I didn't know that they were going to explore this timeline or like this storyline. But Philip Kennedy Johnson did bring us the whole war world Superman, which was this really sort of extreme, not in what he does, but extreme in ideas, like this Superman put into extreme situations. And personally, it has been one of my favorite storylines for Superman. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it before. Superman in War World, like without his powers and whatnot. But lo and behold, there's a surprise for me of these new adventures of Superman in the far future, ending a storyline that began like what, 6-7 years ago, with the whole future state thing. It's quite something. It's quite something, you gotta say, right? I mean, I think the super family right now it's like in a fluctuating state, you could call it like that. I feel like John Kent, the son, has been pushed back a little bit. He did this whole deal with the Secret Six team up, right, with Dreamer and all of these characters. He wanted to this kind of like a dark side. Uh, I'm not really digging the Super Son, but if they're bringing the Super Family as a whole, like before the kind of like reboot with Dan Slott, they brought the adopted children of Superman, right? I forgot their names, but they were like orphans from War World that they adopted, and they haven't brought that too much into the attention. If this is gonna be about the L dynasty, I wanna see that dynamic. I wanna see the adopted children. I wanna see the two Supergirls, the Superman of China that they also sort of like brought in. Like, I don't know. I hope they bring all of that dynamic to this book in particular. And as I said, Futures End. Wow, it's been a long time. So the future of Superman. I don't know how much these storylines, especially, I feel like DC does this way more than Marvel, which is having these ongoing stories in the future, like way too much. It's always these stories in the future for DC, but I feel like they do it because they want to tell something for the present, right? So, anyways, the summer of Superman has been super fun. The reboot has been quite entertaining, I gotta say. But a look into the future from this present, I don't know. It's exciting, and it was a nice reminder of the existence of Futures End. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna look for that Batgirl issue. I don't know if it was Future State or Future End, the one that I had, but it's all good in the end. The Adventures of Superman. Next. What's going on with Spider-Man? Recently, it was brought to my attention that, I talked some trash about Spider-Man, right? As you often do, and like it was brought to my attention. Yeah, but Spider-Man is like the most popular character, blah blah blah, and it's true, right? And whenever I talk about Spider-Man, I keep going back into this idea of the cycle, the Spider-Man cycle, right? He goes up and he goes down. He goes up and he goes down. Like, it's just Spider-Man's thing, right? Like he needs to be brought down constantly. In this current storyline, now there's two Spider-Man. Not not I realize that it sounds so funny because with the whole Spider-Verse thing and whatever, like there's always another Spider-Man. So this storyline has this sort of like ironic tint to it. Like, this is another Peter Parker. It's like an angry bad Peter Parker. It was actually quite a great surprise seeing it at the end of the beginning, like the starter issue for this story and the current story arc. Like, okay, there's another Peter Parker. How are we gonna bring him down? I don't know. But despite all of that, what's important about this is that we are in Legacy 975, which means that this storyline, if it takes at least 20 issues or something, it's gonna be either the last one or the next to last storyline before Legacy 1000 Amazing Spider-Man. Wow. So even though I see the traditional Spider-Man story patterns, right? He's in a good place, he gets into some weird trouble, and then he's brought down. Even though the traditional Spider-Man patterns are to be seen here, I highly suspect that this one is either, as I said, the last or the next to the last story before Legacy 1000. And they had to do something important with that. The last time when we had like, the Superior storyline, that was for 700, was it? Wow, has it been that long? The last time they did, and they did that amazing cover that I think it was a cover made out of the other Amazing Spider-Man covers. Whatever. Pay attention to Amazing Spider-Man because, as I said, we are close to Legacy 1000, and they make it really noticeable. So I don't expect that much from this part of the storyline, but I'm pretty sure it's going to pick up soon as we approach the number 1000. Amazing Spider-Man, as always. Next. Speaking of new beginnings, today is the release of the revamped. That's a word, right? Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez. Like, wow, you can't go more superstar than them, right? They are rebooting Batman. They have been sort of hyping up a lot of this Batman, this new this new era of Batman, a bold new era of Batman, blah blah blah. The typical like hyperbole they do in comics. Um, Besides the fact that Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez are like top of their class, right? Um, my issue with this current Batman is that unlike Superman, that seems so like a little bit more focused, like as a character, or like Wonder Woman, who is also we're talking about the Trinity here, right? For those DC sabbies. Though, but all, the other two parts of the Trinity are sort of like really well contained right now. But Batman, I think Batman is all over the place. Batman is all over the place. The previous storyline that has his potential brother and whatnot, him losing his money, then getting it back. I mean, I think Batman has been all over. And I'm not sure if this is going to be like, how can you say, like a true, like super reboot, because they all are in the end, right? So Batman is back with Tim Drake, but he's with Tim, I think. But at the same time, there's a Batman and Robin book going on, right? They have Hush 2 going on as well, and Detective Comics, I think it's going to another point also. So Batman is all over. You have absolute Batman like breaking records, and I don't think Matt Fraction is gonna bring any of his humor to it like he did in Hawkeye, right? Like one of his best works. To me, he's like Hawkeye and sex criminals, or something like that, right? I don't think he's gonna change Batman in that way. I have tried to avoid like really avoid more synopsis about the this new Batman, this new era of Batman. So besides the whole like groundbreaking whatever like new era, I haven't really been reading anything because I want to be surprised. Because as I said, I feel Batman is really spread thin, and I'm looking for that book that is gonna be the push. Not even Hush 2. Like I might, when Hush 2 finishes, I might feel inclined to comment on it. But like not even Hush 2 has been like I don't know. Like it's like a Batman event, like a bunch of bad guys, and like they all have it against Batman, and they have like this plan that seems unbreakable, right? Like the Bat Family turns against him. It's like Hush 1 with a little bit of spice. You know, I'm missing like the 0 Year storyline and like the Snyder era that was so self-contained and like aggressive in the sense that it would focus on just this one thing for a while, and they would go deep into it. And like I don't know, I'm missing that more like as I said, self-contained era of Batman. He always gonna be all over the place, but like it's missing something big. And with something big, I hope it's not the return of Alfred. If this is like a convoluted way of bringing Alfred back, uh, should they leave Alfred dead? I don't know. Is it gonna be Bane again? I don't know. It's already the big story arc for Absolute Batman is related to Bane. So, but anyways, it's Batman. Batman number one is Jorge Jimenez. Is Matt Fraction. Like, has to be good, right? Next. Speaking of new beginnings, Doctor Strange Legacy 450 coming out with a bunch of writers setting up the future for Doctor Strange. My God. After the events of the Doctor Strange in Asgard, this is the setup that is gonna be totally connected somehow to the events of One World Under Doom, that, as I mentioned, is coming out to an end by the end of the year. and the whole Sorcerer Supreme. You can't have Doctor Strange without Sorcerer Supreme, right? The one thing that I look forward to this Doctor Strange, not as a big Doctor Strange fan, but I think they're gonna mention again the what was his name, like the general. My last the last good, like, great storyline that I read for Doctor Strange, when he had this future version of himself that had fought wars for like a million years. So he was this fucked up this Doctor Strange, like with a warlike mind. And that was super fun because it was the contrast of the same character, right? Like that sort of mental psychosis of seeing your different self, but put into such a strange situation, no pun intended, but expected given what you do as a character. But anyways, Doctor Strange of Asgard was just okay. I think I mentioned it once. He went into this whole detective shtick that going through Asgard trying to solve a crime, and I don't think he really did get that power up. I feel like sometimes they do these things, especially Marvel, where the characters get a power up, be it a new suit, like a new power or something, like in all new Venom right now. Like Venom, even though now he's bonded with Mary Jane, that's not the only thing that changed with the character, right? It has like not different powers, but they have been introducing this idea that a creative mind can do better things with a symbiote. So he has done some Felix the Cat shit during the all new Venom. So I was hoping Doctor Strange of Asgard was gonna be something like that. Doesn't seem like it, but necessarily something needs to be like seeping into the main Doctor Strange. And as we talk with Spider-Man, these legacy numbers, they are not always big hits or big triumphs, but they are always interesting. And it's always a great jump point for anyone that wants to get into the character or that wants to get updated on the character. So how could you not recommend Doctor Strange number 450? Even though it's like in my mid tier of characters, I think he's super annoying in Marvel Rivals, if that helps. If that serves as any kind of help. He's so annoying in Marvel Rival. But okay, whatever. Doctor Strange number 450. Next. Going into like another side of things. One of my low-key favorite new books for this past year has been Kelly Sue DeConnick's FML. So Kelly Sue DeConnick for like the big brands, right, of Captain Marvel fame. Like she was the one that basically rebooted and created the current Captain Marvel that we have. She has this incredible like way of looking at the world, which is so strange. This is so bizarre. So FML is basically her. It's so weird. Like it begins with like a family, right? Like the mother, I think she is a writer. I don't think she's a comic writer, but like she is a writer, and her son like becomes a teenager, right? And he turns into this monster in like one of the most traditional sort of like metaphors of like a teenager, like a kid becomes a teenager, becomes a monster, right? It's one of the big classic metaphors, right? But what she has done with FML is so cute, so wholesome, so full of heart, because it's basically it seems that she made a fictional like form of her life and her family. Like I follow her on her socials, right? And she's always talking about her kids and how proud she is of her kids and what they do. So all of that is in the comic book, and it's literally like watching her life from the eyes of a creator. It's so funny, so curious to see, because all the characters, they behave like in a normal setting, but they are pushed just a little bit beyond what you can consider normal, right? And it's so funny. It's just it's so funny, and as I say, it's so full of heart. And since I follow her for a long time, and including her socials, you know that she's talking about her, and that is so warming, so moving. By the end of every issue in FML, there's like a commentary from her, like about, I don't know, punk culture, like American culture, like it. This is as close as you get to an autobiography, I think. Like pushed through this fictional filter where every character, of course, it's not gonna be straight up a copy of whatever they are in reality. They just get a little bit more, how can you say, metaphorical. That is the way. So you don't really need to be following her on her socials like I do, or like have read like Beach Planet, or like Wonder Woman story, like all of the great things she has done to get into FML. FML is just this honest expression of a creator, like watching life through the eyes of a creator, like someone that is creative, that is like honest, and like just incredible. Like you can totally see her in this book, and that is its strength. And well, what is not to hate, right? So I cannot recommend more FML by Dark Horse Comics, written by Kile Sudekonic, Big Star, and drawn by David Lopez. Next. And I'm back. I had to take a phone call. Apologies. So, I said before that I wanted to do some like pickup, like where we left with a different recommendation before, and like that's why I'm recommending the Imperial War. It's called now Imperial War: The Exiles, the Jonathan Hickman led event on Marvel, like that is gonna change the status quo of the what was the name, like galactic state of whatever, right? Like the galactic shit, basically. Um, well, in the main book, it's already Imperial number 3. I don't want to spoil anything, but like the sort of the initial big mystery, it has already been revealed. I'm not gonna say what it is in case people is not following, but in one of these important tie-ins, the Exiles, this is probably the most relevant one because it has the fugitive of the law, Charles Xavier, and his resurrected wife, Lilandra. Right, they are gonna save their daughter. So basically, what can I say without spoiling the main Imperial book? Basically, there has been a conspiracy to sort of like shake down the main empires of Marvel's galactic state or galactic hierarchy, right? The Skrulls, the Shi'ar, like Spartax, like all of them, Wakanda, they are all in there. And this one is not necessarily going to be that relevant as anything related to the other ones, I feel like, but I just love this combination. And with this combination, I mean Xavier and Lilandra. I've always had a soft spot for them as a couple. And when they had the daughter, right, I always thought it wasn't properly used. Like it didn't have like a, to me, like a really big story arc. And as I said, this is a tie-in, so I don't think it's gonna be that big of a story arc. But come on, it's Charles Xavier. Like he needs to come back somehow to the main X-Men storyline, and if he's gonna come back, he's gonna come back with the baggage of Imperial for sure. For sure. As I said, I have a soft spot for this couple, and if they're gonna present them as a family, I don't know. Sadly, as I said, I can't say much because I really don't want to spoil Imperial. I don't think it has been that exciting in general. I think the plot twist in Imperial, it wasn't obvious, but it was one of like the strongest sort of possibilities out of it. So it hasn't been my favorite, but I'm gonna dig into the tie-ins as they come out, especially Exiles and World. This is hard to pronounce. World War She-Hulk later, right? I want to see more of the tie-ins than the Imperial itself, because I think it's gonna do lots with characters that I like and that I feel like has been really not that. No, it sounds mean to say not interesting, but they have been just okay. I talked some time ago about the previous volume of She-Hulk, right? She's a great character, but the whole shtick of the previous volume was her romantic relationships and everything. But like this is going to be more like big World War She-Hulk. It sounds great. I think they introduced that in Imperial One, where basically like Bruce Banner, he left. I mean, not Bruce Banner, the Hulk leaves her in charge of the planet, and he goes looking up for Scar's murderer. So something fun is gonna happen in these tie-ins. I would pay attention to all of them, like not just Exiles and She-Hulk. And of course, well, I guess they're gonna close Imperial with like a big thing. I don't know. I'm seeing a soft reboot for at least Weekend. I have that in mind for Weekend, for Nova, for sure, for sure. And something's gonna happen for She-Hulk and Charles Xavier as well. So these tie-ins are pretty interesting, if you ask me. Imperial War Exiles. Next. As the Justice League went, what is the subtitle of Unlimited? Like as the main Justice League goes unlimited, the Justice Society of America, it has become like not the Justice League, but like I feel like it has remained into this more self-contained space. As I mentioned before, with when I was talking about Superman and Batman, sometimes I like this more self-contained space. What Jeff Lemire has done with the Justice Society has been quite interesting, like bringing all of these characters into like a state of events where they are relevant, but they don't conflict with the Justice League. The weird thing right now about the Justice Society is that it has a lot of characters that seem to have way more relevancy to other books, but it's only implied. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but many of the characters in the ongoing Justice Society, they necessarily have like a big impact outside of the book of the Justice Society. But he has managed it like really well, and especially when it comes to like Green Lantern, for example, and like setting up these characters that to me they were like rather fresh before, because they all appeared on the Stargirl live action series, right? Short lived, that I thought it was pretty okay, if you ask me. So Dr. Midnight, who else? They all escape my mind right now. But like basically now we have the Injustice Society and the Justice Society of America rebranded, like with new characters, new version of all characters. And in this storyline Ragnarok, they are like fighting for like mystical elements, which basically gives the book a relevancy that, as I said, is not gonna clash with the Justice League Unlimited. And I've talked about Jeff Lemire a bunch of times because I love his writing, and I love the spin he gives to characters. As I said, like Dr. Midnight, it has been super great. The Green Lantern, Dr. Fate. I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say like the classic, oh, it's a family or anything, but that's how it feels. Like unlike the Justice League that went way big, the JSA stays small, so you can build little stories and little interactions between all of the characters. and that is great. And as I said, to me, it sort of seeps straight from the live action, which was my last personal interaction with the JSA before Jeff Lemire took over the book for the All In initiative. So when they get into these big group battles between the Justice Society and the Injustice Society, is that this little family affair, right? Like, and you can trace every relationship between the characters. But now that in the Justice League, everybody's part of the Justice League, like everything is huge and even a little bit distracting. So I've been using the Justice Society of America book as this sort of like a cozy little space for DC team ups. I mentioned before the Secret Six book, and that whole team up, that it was kind of like weird and strange. Like it tried to be too dark, but like it didn't pan out for me. It just felt like a little bit forced and strange, like all the conflict in it. But the Justice Society has been great, and Jeff Lemire is great. So much so that, let me see if I didn't miss. Well, so much so that I'm gonna talk about another Jeff Lemire book in a little bit. Okay. Another one of these pickup sort of like issues of things that I mentioned before and I want to update is Charles Soule's Legacy of Vader, right? I talked about this book before Kylo Ren went to Naboo. He was going to go to Naboo and like going to experience how his grandfather like lived in Naboo, right? And I gotta say, I don't want to talk trash about Charles Soule, and I know he's done a great job in general in Star Wars, but I feel like that this has added nothing to the character. Now he's gonna go against the Knights of Ren, right? Like again, in a way. The only thing that sort of reminded me by seeing the Knights of Ren again is like how weird they were like in the movies. Like if we go back to the last trilogy, right? The last Star Wars trilogy, there was so much shit about Kylo Ren that people were like who are these guys, right? They have tried to introduce the Knights of Ren in several like comic books, and like they have tried to make their storyline relevant. They did it in the Crimson Dawn storyline. They were there, right? They are going back here, Legacy of Vader. But the point remains, Kylo Ren's storyline finished and ended in those 3 movies, to me. So when he went to Naboo, did he really had any sort of like big revelation? No, it's all stuff that we already knew. So unlike what they did with the Darth Vader comic book, where they expanded elements that they were not in the movie trilogy, right? For example, the conflict between Vader and Palpatine, right? They sort of focused more on Vader as a character, what made him so powerful by expanding his drama, right? They expanded the possibility of his good side still being there by creating or like reinforcing his relationship with Luke beyond what we saw in The Empire Strikes Back, right? What they did with Vader, giving him so many layers, was great, but to me it's not working with Kylo Ren. Because in every appearance of Kylo Ren, like in between the movies, in other media like the comic books, he's always the same guy. It's always the same guy. He had faith, he was betrayed, right? And he goes from place to place and like, okay, here's a reveal of what your grandfather thought. Like, I don't give a shit, I'm Kylo Ren, like I'm gonna destroy everyone, brr. I really wish someone would like give me, I don't know, a more of a sort of like more revealing outtake on what they have done with Kylo Ren post the movies. To me, he remains the same character, and the way he ends. This is a Star Wars Episode 9 spoiler, right? The way he ends his life seems to not really allow for many layers if they are not like really interesting. Like there's no little piece of Kylo Ren that was forgotten and now he's like you see him in a different light. You know what I mean? Or his character was so basic in a way. His story arc was so like straightforward that I don't feel like these comics are adding anything. I'm gonna keep reading them, but like now what is the big deal with this? There's they are introducing a new character for the Knights of Ren, and if you come from nothing to Legacy of Vader, the comic book, if you come imagine this, you come straight from the movies to this comic book, you have no fucking idea who the Knights of Ren are. There's just a bunch of like black Power Rangers that they were supposed to be important. And that's it. You're not gonna get any revelation from this. But anyways, that's the pickup for one of the pickups for today. Legacy of Vader. I said that I had another Jeff Lemire book to talk about. Phantom Road began with this trucker, right? That went into through like a supernatural occurrence in the middle of the desert while driving his truck, right? He seems to be teleporting in from like a ghost world or like a kind of like a mystical world into the real world. Suddenly in the middle, right? The book changed and they introduce the FBI, the police that are like investigating this supernatural occurrence. So the book got divided in the middle between this horror-oriented adventure of this trucker and this girl that he picks up in the middle of this survival situation, and the police that has some sort of like a X-Files, like a really, really, really strong X-Files vibe, that they are like researching the same sort of like parallel world situation. And I think Jeff Lemire is great for writing these horror stories. Like I don't know, there's this feeling that the characters are always like in trouble. So the first half of Phantom Road had this I forgot the name of the other horror book he had for Image, but he had this book about these people that when they live inside a building. Let me look it up. They live inside like a cursed building, and it had that sensation of they are never getting out of this, right? It was so good. I'm pretty sure I had it written down before and I misplaced it. Tenement, right? There was this sort of like cursed building, and the whole thing was about them, like a bunch of survivors from them, like escaping. So he has this really good horror sort of like side to him, and of course, Phantom Road goes into the same sort of like vein, and it's pretty good. And now that it's beginning to be a little bit more explained through the other side of the story arc, I think it's a great way for picking it up. I'm gonna wait for it to finish and maybe fully comment on it, because it was a great experiment, as I said, taking this story apart in two sides. It was pretty fun. So the final, not recommendation, but a pickup for this week. Finally, I talked about this when they announced it, but now it's out. Finally, Spider-Man 94 is coming up, and I have nothing newer to say about Spider-Man 94. Like, I'm just reminding people that it's coming out, that they're gonna introduce characters from the comic to this version. Like, but I gotta say once again, I hope they do a condensed version of what Spider-Man 94 was. There's a chance that they are gonna go to the drama side of it, like they did with the X-Men animated series, or they might go to the joke side of it. I don't really know, and frankly, I don't care that much. I'm gonna pick it up anyways because it was part of my childhood, right? Spider-Man '94. I hope it does well and they bring Iron Man. What would it be, '98 or something? I hope they do so. But this is just a quick reminder. I'm gonna come back to Spider-Man '94 when all of my doubts about it are cleared after I read number one in a couple of weeks. Just a quick reminder. Anyways, that's another week. A lot of Jeff Lemire, a lot of Superman, exciting new beginning for Batman. Uh, Spider-Man goes into his traditional ups and downs, right? I guess the conclusion is that Spider-Man is that big. I've never tried to avoid Spider-Man, but I've always approached the character with like a little bit of suspicion, right? Since I was a kid, since I saw the first sort of like this, as I said, reboot in the character, that he goes up and he goes down. Since I saw the first iteration of that, I've always lived with that idea and that caution when I approach the character. Like, yeah. But anyways, another exciting week for comic books. I don't know. Sometimes people say like they are like doing bad. Like, I don't know. There's every week there's something exciting to look forward to. And today I'm sticking with Spider-Man and Batman. Like it has to be good, right? Imagine a Batman comedy book, like a proper Batman comedy book. Imagine that. And I'm not talking about that he falling down on his ass by sleeping on a banana peel, right? I'm not talking about that funny. I'm talking about Matt Fraction funny, right? We'll see. We'll do some pickup, some like pickup commentary on Batman once I get to read number one. Who knows when? Probably in a couple of weeks. But anyways, here's the end. Thank you for listening, and keep on reading. I need to get a catchphrase. That sucked. Bye bye.